Okay. So welcome everyone and good evening or good morning, everyone. Today is our workshop, Building Bridge Restorative Practice, district-wide in Minnesota schools. So this is our second workshop in our workshop series called From Local to Global Dialogues on Restorative Practice in Educations. And before we start, at the beginning of our session today, I want to take a few moments to sharing about and honor and also acknowledge about our friends, Ted Lewis, who is the one that I have a chance to meet during our fellowship, my fellowship in the US. And he is a restorative consultant and trainer at the Center for Restorative Justice and Peacemaking in University of Minnesota. And after meeting, even his work focused on application of restorative justice into criminal justice system in the US. And because his belief in our connections and the community healing, so he asked me if he can do anything to support our work in Vietnam to promote the restorative justice practice into our work. So that's why I have the connections. He connect me with Nancy and Grace so that we can start this workshop series. And this is also my honor, and I want to keep his spirit alive by we all know that during what happenings during this day in our world, maybe many of us feel uncertain or feel insecure about what my future holds. So I hope that our work today and our upcoming sessions can be a change for our work, for our collaborations, and beyond that is for our connections to support our work whenever we are in our work. So it is my honor to organize our second workshop today, and we will be here in 1.5 hours with Grace Yang and Nancy Riestenberg for our sessions. And our agenda today will be more to open the space for our interactive activity, for us to share, for us to can connect with other friends, other participants. So I would like to invite everyone, if inconvenient, you can open the camera and we can see each other and feel each other's. And we also provide support on translations. And I will pass a bit for Phượng to share a little bit support on us.
Thank you, Chitling, for passing the mic. I'm just gonna share a little bit of how to use the captions for translation. So here's the file that I have prepared to for easier to visualize. So first you can see in the bottom of the toolbar, there's a little box called captions, like in the pictures. And if you click on it, you can change the setting to the language that you wanted to translate it. So my speaking language in the webinar would be English, and the my caption language, you can change this to the language that you want. So if you guys need any assistance in the translation, please feel free to text me in the chat room and I can personally assist you with that. And I'm gonna pass the mic back to Chị Linh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your support, and I hope everyone can feel free to using that technical support. So now I will introduce our two speaker and also facilitator of our workshop today. Is Miss Gray Yang, who is a restorative practice consultant for Minnesota Department of Education. And also she is an educator for 15 years, a former restorative practice coordinator and elementary classroom teacher for St. Paul Public Schools. And our second speaker is Nancy Riestenberg. I believe that if you participated in the workshop, previous workshop, you already met her. She's author of Circle in the Square and getting more our restorative practice in schools, and also a former restorative practice specialist in Minnesota Department of Education. So welcome, and I will pass a talking piece to Grace.
All right. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you all for your presence this morning. It's so good to be with you all this morning. I want to begin first by expressing gratitude. So much gratitude for Lynn for reaching out to me and Nancy and asking us to be a part of this symposium and putting together this lovely symposium for all of you and for us. It has been a joy to be able to work with Lynn and with Nancy to be able to put together our presentation for today. We are so grateful that we were able to join you via Zoom, and much gratitude to technology nowadays that we can be a part of your community, even though we are virtual with you all today. We also like to express gratitude to at least my restorative practitioner who has mentored me and supported me throughout my journey in restorative practices. So I would love to call out a name, Becky McCammon, for all of her work that she has done to help me and guide me on my journey when I first began with restorative practices. And so I bring her space and her name into the space this morning for us. And then I have much gratitude to all of the students that I have taught in my 15 years of being an educator. Some who have already graduated high school and some who are already married. So it's been a long time for me that I have been teaching to see my students grow up and to see them develop into adults. And so we also want to start off by sharing a little bit about who we are. Here's a picture of me on the left side of this screen. I was probably, I want to say 5 years old in this picture here. I am a Hmong American woman. My parents immigrated here as refugees during the Vietnam War, and they were born and raised in Laos. And I am a proud daughter of my Hmong refugee parents. My pronouns are she, her. And I am, as Lynn had mentioned, a restorative practices specialist at the Minnesota Department of Education. And it's a little bit about who I am. So I will pass it over to Nancy to introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Grace. Good morning, everyone, from where I am in California. But I think many of you, the salutation would be good evening. I'm Nancy Riestenberg. She, her, hers are my pronouns, and I am Babe and Bob's fifth daughter out of 7 children. I worked for 30 years in school climate and restorative practices at the Minnesota Department of Education, and just recently left working with Grace this fall. As Lynn noted, I have authored a couple of books on restorative practices in schools, mostly about the work that people do in Minnesota. And before I came to the Department of Education, I worked in the area of child sexual abuse prevention education and HIV/AIDS prevention. And I taught for a couple of years speech theater and English. So I feel that the work that I do has always been about education and making sure that the children who come into a school have the opportunity to be able to access the knowledge that is there to be offered to them. And school climate became the passion of mine to ensure that all children felt as though they could access this wonderful thing of education. So that's who we are. And then there's the question of where we are. For those of you who were not in the first seminar, I'll just briefly give you a little geography lesson. Minnesota is in the middle of the United States, just south of Canada. It is the word Minnesota comes from a Dakota word, Minnesota Makoche, which means land where the water reflects the sky. So it is the land of the Dakota people, the Ho-Chunk, and the Anishinaabe people. And that water reflects the sky refers to the fact that the glaciers came through and cut out a whole bunch of lakes, a whole bunch of holes that filled with water. And so it is the land of 10,000 lakes. And the source of the head of the Mississippi River is also in Minnesota, which is, I think, the 3rd largest river system in the world. And it is the home of all of the various people who have come, not just who were not just had ancestors there, but who came by force. There were enslaved people in Minnesota before the Civil War, or by choice. People from all over the world choose to come and live in this state and continue to do so even today, or in need. We have had many waves of refugees that have come from a variety of places in the world seeking a place of safety and connection. There are about 200 different languages or more spoken in the homes of children who live in Minnesota. The ones that are most common are English, Somali from Africa, Hmong from Laos, and Spanish. So I'll pass this to Grace.
Thank you, Nancy. So we have introduced ourselves, and we would love to hear your voice in the space as well. And so as you introduce yourselves, we invite you to share your name. What is your title or job? Where are you right now? And then where were you born? And so to help us with this process, we ask that everybody click on the hand up icon on the bottom of your screen. So if you go to, I believe it is reactions on the bottom, and then you put raise your hand. So if you click raise your hand, everybody should have a little hand come up on their screen in the corner that looks like that. So go to the reaction button on the bottom. There we go. We're seeing
Grace,
some
perhaps
hands.
we could stop sharing the screen right now.
All right.
Stop sharing the PowerPoint so we could see everyone.
There we go. Some people still If you need help finding the raising your hand on the bottom of the screen, let us know. This is helpful for us so that we know who has had a turn and who has not had a turn. That way, when we call on you, you can put your hand, lower your hand. That way we know you have had a turn. And so when you are called, introduce yourself again by saying your name, your job or your title, where you are right now, and where were you born? And then you'll call on another person after you're done who still has their hand raised. And that person will introduce themselves. And then after you're done introducing yourself, you'll lower your hand and call on another person who has their hand still up on their screen. And turn on your camera for your introduction if you can, so that we can see who you are. And so I will go ahead and begin by introducing myself. My name is Grace Yang. I am a restorative practices consultant for the Minnesota Department of Education. I am currently right now here in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and I was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is the state, if you look on the map, directly to the right of Minnesota, so not too far from Minnesota. And with that, I will pass it to Viet.
Thank you, Grace. So my name is Viet. I go by he, him pronouns, and I'm now graduate student in Seattle. I was born and raised in Hanoi, Vietnam. I would like to pass the talking piece to Caroline.
Hello, it's good morning here, bright and early. My name is Caroline. I am a retired educator, and now I do work in different school boards around school climate and restorative practices. I am from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So when you saw Nancy's map, I'm a little bit north and west of there. And I was born one province over east in Saskatchewan. Oh, sorry, I need to pass it to somebody. I will pass it to Deborah. Oh, maybe she's not. Oh, maybe she's not there. I will pass it to, and apologies if I mispronounce your name, but I will pass it to Nguyen. On my screen, it says Nguyen Han. Okay, I seem to be striking out here. So I'll pass it to whoever wants to go next.
Okay, I will go next. Hello, everyone. My name is David. I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia. So right now, I'm a learning designer consultant for government and non-government organizations specified in peace education, tolerance, and inclusivity. So I was born in Bandung, West Java. It's like 4 hours from capital of Indonesia, Jakarta. Nice to meet you all and looking forward for today's sessions. And I will pass it to Lynn.
Hi everyone. Thank you, David, for passing the talking piece to me. My name is Ling, and now I'm a restorative practitioner and also an educator who was born and living in Hanoi, Vietnam. So, yeah, thank you. And I would like to pass to Hậu Xuân Mai. Hello, không biết Hậu, is that Hậu is still here? I saw you raise your hand.
She's
Hello.
speaking in chat.
Actually, it is Ho. My name is Ho Sun Mai. I am a university student at Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, and right now I'm really passionate about education. That's why I try to attend to different workshops to learn more. And nice to meet you guys. Oh, I would like to call for um chị Phượng.
Thanks, Ho Sun Mai, for passing the mic. My name is Phượng, and I'm a final year student at Hanoi University. I was born and raised in Hanoi. And nice to meet you guys. I'm gonna take a moment to acknowledge Loveni Raj. She has been texting in the chat. Hi guys, I am Loveni Garis. I hope that I pronounced it right. You can call me Loven. I'm having a poor internet connection, so I'm using the chat box. And I'm full-time postgraduate student at Sapa, and I am also a part invigilator at IDP Education. I was born and raised in Malaysia. Hi. And also Deborah. Deborah is currently driving and unable to share videos. She's in Indiana and was born in Connecticut on the East Coast of the United States. She works with school in Indiana on positive behavior support, and she will be able to join video soon. So I'm gonna passing the mic back to the circle.
I think we can pass the talking piece to Nancy, who still raised hand.
Thank you, Lynn. So I'm Nancy, she, her, hers. I'm currently in Los Angeles, California, but I generally live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was born on a small town halfway up the state of Minnesota called Perham, which was named after a railroad surveyor. And I will try, Tom? Or hung, or ho. No, we did ho. Or ha.
So I believe that in our circle we have Hải Vân and Hà and Nguyễn Hạnh Nguyên, Thắm Nguyễn, and Hằng Ngô is I would like to invite if you are open to open your microphone and check in with everyone, or else we can I would like to invite you can check in the chat box.
Hi everyone, I am Hằng Ngô from Hanoi. I am friend of Việt Nguyễn and very admire your projects in the learning cycles, so that I apply for this course. Thank you for the invitation.
Hello everyone, can you hear me clearly? Yes, hello everyone. My name is Tham, and I was a science teacher at the secondary and high school in this year. And I was born in Quảng Nam province, in the central part of Vietnam. And being a teacher in 6 year, I witnessed the rise of the mental health illness of my students. Therefore, I applied the Australia Award Scholarship, and I will go to I will learn about the Master of Education in the specialization of student well-being in next year. And this time I take a break and prepare for before I departed to Australia in 2025. Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else? I've kind of lost track.
We have Nguyễn Hạnh Nguyên also checked in the chat box. Hello everyone, my name is Hạnh Nguyên. My major is Japanese at Hanoi University of Geography. I'm not very confident in my English. So I learned about the discourse through realm a project under IC. I was quite interested in education during my exchange in Japan, so I decided to join. So I think I also would like to invite, if anyone want to check in, please feel free to continue check in and catch up in the chat box. And I think I will pass the talking piece to Nancy and Grace to continue our sessions today.
Thank you. We forgot to say at the beginning that you could introduce yourself in whatever language you wanted to. At any rate, we shall go on. Thank you for sharing your voice and for being brave and for giving us a sense of who is in this virtual room across the world. What an extraordinary thing the technology is. So I invite you to set an intention. One of the things that we know is that if we stop and take a moment to think about how we want to be during a meeting, during even a session with a friend over tea, certainly during our class, that can help us stay focused to the task at hand. So do you want to be present? Do you want to be focused? Do you want to be curious? If we set an intention or ask our students to do so, even if we do it just in our minds, we're more likely to follow through on that intention throughout the class and the meeting. If we write the intention down on a piece of paper or even on our hand with our finger, then that makes it stronger. If we share our intention with one other person, that gives it even more strength. And the strongest thing, of course, is to share your intention with a whole group of people. Then you're really more likely to follow through on that intention. So I just invite you to think about how you want to be during the session that we have today. All right, I pass it to Grace.
Thank you, Nancy. We also like to acknowledge that restorative practices comes from Indigenous knowledge and worldviews, as well as from communities of color all around the world, that restorative practices has an understanding that people are profoundly interconnected, and that we are all inherently good, and that we need people and relationships for survival, and that these also come from different communities around the world. And so all of these are acknowledgement that we need people, and that we center people and relationships in our lives, and that is where we draw these practices from. And so these practices have been happening long before the colonization of Western European civilization, and these practices still happen today. And so we acknowledge that these practices come from these indigenous people and communities of color all around the world, past and present.
So the circle process is one of those indigenous practices that has up in Minnesota. It is the foundational restorative practice, if you will, in the state. And it has an outline. It is not just a configuration where if we were all in person, we would be sitting where we could all see each other in one big circle with no open beginning, no ending. But it also has an outline in the way in which the circle meeting happens. So we just completed going through meeting, getting acquainted, which is always the beginning of circle. We need to ground ourselves to ourself and to each other. And then we spend time in building some understanding and trust, primarily through storytelling, as a means of making it possible for us to then address issues, however profound or simple those issues might be. It's easier to do if we're connected to ourselves and to each other. And after we have come up with address the issues that are of concern to us, we can then have the ability to make plans based out of those concerns, or we can look to an opportunity of finding a way to make a sense of unity, a final connection for all the people that have been in the circle. So for our time together, we're using that same outline. We have done the welcoming routines and the introduction, and I'm giving you now an overview, because I and Grace and I have both found that it just goes better if we stop and take the time for people to be able to connect to self and to the other people, even if it's in a simple way by saying where you were born. We're then going to build understanding around restorative practices by sharing with you 6 stories of restorative practices in schools. We certainly can give you a manual and direct you to step 1, step 2, step 3, but the power of having an understanding about restorative practices in schools, which can look different in every school in the world, I think is most sharply illustrated by having some stories. Then in the third quadrant, we will take a moment, not more than a moment, we'll take 20 minutes to be in circle in small groups so that we can reflect and share. We're also going to have a bit of a break between the first 3 stories and the second 3 stories so that if people wanted to ask us some questions, we could gather those. Then after the circle, the small group circle, we'll finish up with just a bit of step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of implementation and discussion about what a restorative mindset means before we go back into a whole circle. And again, people in that whole circle can speak in chat. They can speak in the language that is most comfortable to them. And we will reflect on what stands out for you and what questions that you might have. If we are not able to get to all the questions today, we will write an answer for them and pass them on to Lynn. So with that, we can go on to telling you some stories about implementation.
So the first story comes from my experience teaching circle to adults. When I was a restorative practices coordinator at an elementary school, this was the staff, the teachers that I had to help and coach and train with restorative practices. And so we, at the beginning of the school year, sat in a very large circle, as you see here in this image. This was actually us playing a game to start us off at the beginning of the school year. And of course, at the beginning of the school year, everyone, as the adults, this was their kind of first time experiencing circle. So everybody was kind of hesitant to share and talk in circle. And everyone was a little nervous. They're like, what is this? Why are we sitting in a big circle? And every month I had an opportunity to lead the staff in circle. And so every month, teachers felt more comfortable talking, sharing. And by the end of the school year, when we passed around the talking piece, we got very comfortable with one another, where we built so much trust over the school year that when we passed around the talking piece, adults eventually started to and opened up and shared a lot of stories. And eventually we got to the point where we were comfortable enough to even share fart noises in a circle because we got so comfortable and building this trust and building this community. So throughout the year, every month, adults became more comfortable with this experience of sitting in circle. And so adults too can learn what it means like to sit in circle, to wait your turn, to listen deeply, to pause, to take a breath. And so adults also need to experience what it feels like to be in circle so that they know how and what their students experience too when they implement circle in their classrooms too. And so that is one story of how I taught circle to adults at an elementary school that I worked at. And with that, I'll pass it to Nancy.
Thank you, Grace. So I want to then take what happens or what can happen when adults become comfortable with circle and build up their ability to understand it so that they can teach it to their students. This story comes from the middle school, the Panema Middle School, which teaches students between the ages of 11 and 13 years old, up north in Minnesota on the Red Lake Indian Reservation. It was a small school. The class sizes were about 12 to 15 students per class. Every class in this middle school started with circle check-in for every class. So kids had a quick check-in circle in their English language arts classes, in science and social studies and mathematics. I joined the geography class, the social studies class that was teaching geography, and we started in circle. What the teacher, Andy, did was he had the students stand in a circle, so he didn't have to move around any desks or anything. And he used a rock, since we were talking about geography, to pass that around the circle with all of the students. His questions were, the day that I was there, the first one was, what kind of land formation are you today? Say your name and what kind of land formation you are today. And then he would ask them to share one thing that they learned and remembered from yesterday. So these students, of course, were middle school scholars, and they were short in their answers. I remember that a lot of them said they were like a forest, or there were a couple of lakes, and there was one girl who said that she was like a mountain. But they also shared what they remember from the day before. So there was a good review for all of the kids to hear from their peers what stood out for them. And it also helped Andy know what they had missed that he thought was important. So it helped him to organize how he was going to start his teaching for the class. And of course, this gave him an opportunity to see every child, to really stop and take a mindful moment and look at every student that he had, so he could see who had energy and who maybe was a little low, who he might feel that he needed to check in on to see if they were okay, if they were doing okay. So it helped him prepare his class. It helped the students review what they had learned the day before. It gave the students the opportunity to see each other and to know what each other's land formation was, certainly. Hearing every voice and connecting that both socially and academically was the foundational way that Andy used circle in the classroom. I'll pass to Grace.
And so, circle to repair harm. At the elementary school that I taught at, we first focused on building and creating circles for building community, so that students had a positive experience with circle first before we even went to circles to repair harm. And I remember there was two fourth grade students. One student had been teased multiple times by another student, and the teacher had approached me and asked if I could help hold a repair of harm circle with these two students. And before I could even bring the two students together, I brought each student to me individually first. So the first student that I had pulled to the side to have a pre-conference with was a young girl. And she had explained to me that this particular student has been calling her names and has been making her feel unsafe in her classroom, and that she was worried that something else could happen to her and it could escalate. And so she had expressed herself feeling angry. So I simply asked her first, what happened? And so she was able to tell me what happened. And I asked her then, what were you feeling and thinking at the time? And so she expressed that she was feeling scared. And then I asked, who has been affected? So thinking about not only has it impacted her, it also impacted her friends who heard that this was happening to her. Talking about the strengths and what you need to move on and what could happen now to meet those needs and repair the harm. She specifically said that she wanted this particular student to stop calling her names and to leave her alone, and that she would like an apology for what he has done to her. And so I told her and asked her if it was okay if she could come together with the other student who has been causing her some harm. And I told her that it would be the same process, and I would ask her the same questions while we were sitting in front of the student that had caused her harm. And so she agreed that she would like to sit with this particular student and talk about what happened. And so before I could even have them come together, I also pulled him to the side and talked to him individually. And I asked him the same questions. I asked him what happened. He told me, well, this particular student, this girl, has been teasing me. And so I felt like I was feeling like I was being bullied. And so therefore I teased her back. Okay, well, what were you feeling and thinking? Well, he felt unsafe too. And that he felt like he had to feel like he had to have more power over her to make her feel less than. And so he started to feel like he needed to take action because of that. And so when I asked him who has been affected, he said he has been affected. And then asking again, like, what do you think needs to happen to repair the harm? And he said, well, I think she also needs to apologize to me for calling me names. And so I took these two stories in my own mind and said, okay, there's obviously another story that hasn't been told, and what is truly happening within this story and this harm. And so I asked him as well, I said, okay, well, would you feel like you are ready to sit in front of this student and talk about what happened? And so he said yes. So they both agreed to come together. And so when I brought the two together, I reminded them of the process. I reminded them and said, well, today we're going to sit here again. We're going to talk about what happened. You will share your story, and then you will share your story. And then we'll talk about what happened with these two stories. What did you notice with these two stories? Who has been affected? What do you both need? And in the end, these two students agreed that they both did not fully share the true story of what happened until they both heard each other about their own side of the story. Then in the end, they both acknowledged that they both caused harm and that they both realized that they both were hurting one another. And the root of the problem was because one student had taken a book that the other student had wanted to read during independent reading time. And that's what caused this all to happen. And so instead, they decided they would take turns reading this book. So when the student finished reading the book, they then would give the book to the other students. And it all boiled down to just not having a turn reading this book. And so we got to the root of the problem. They both apologized for their behavior. And then I sent them back to class. And a couple weeks later, I brought them back together and I checked in with them. I asked them the same questions. What happened? What happened since we last met? And they both expressed that they were both doing well. The other student had gotten the book. They haven't been calling each other names. They've been actually learning more about each other and getting to know each other. And so this circle, what seemed to be, could have escalated to even something bigger, became something truly small in the end. And they were able to get to know one another and build a relationship because of it. And so I believe these slides will be shared with you. So if you would like to see another example of a high school repair of harm circle with family group conferencing, you'll be able to click on that link as well. And so with that, we would like to open it up to any questions that anyone may have. Feel free to put it in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. And if there are no questions, or if you want to just leave it in the chat, feel free to do so as well.
So, I think if anyone needs to support on translations, I think we have one question from David. Is there any principle need to apply in the circle?
Grace, do you want to respond to a principle that you use to hold circle?
A
Or a
principle?
value?
So I think it's important first for adults and students to experience what it feels like to be a part of a good circle first. That they know that circle is a good place to come to, and that circle is not a place where they will only be talking about what hurt them. And so that's why it's important for it was important for me to teach the teachers in my school first what it felt like to be a part of a good circle, to eventually, when the January 6th insurrection happened here in America, it caused a lot of hurt to our community and with our staff. And we were able to hold a circle to talk about how that made us feel, how it impacted us. And so because staff already knew that circle was a safe place for them to be able to speak and to not be interrupted and to listen deeply, a lot of staff were able to come to this circle and talked about the questions and experiences they were also feeling when this incident happened in our country. So I think the principle is just having circle be a place where students and adults can feel like they are trusted and be able to express and share openly how they feel. Nancy, is there anything else you want to add?
I think the basic values that we talked about at the beginning about recognizing that we're all interconnected and also recognizing that we want to put relationships before anything else. That also helps to guide what we're doing. And then finally, a deep curiosity, a kind, open curiosity. As you heard from Grace, she was curious about everybody, regardless of how someone defined one student initially. That openness is really a critical component of doing restorative practices and using circle for any reason.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat from Deborah. How do you have meaningful circles with staff when the group is so large? Yes, the group that I led with restorative practices was really large. We had about 70 people every month. And so initially, just how we started off here in our virtual circle, I always had an opportunity for everyone's voice to be heard. So I would simply start with your name, and either it was like, how are you feeling today, in one word, so that it was a quick, everybody had an opportunity to talk. And then after that, we actually broke off into smaller circles. So typically it was a circle of maybe 5 at the most. And then I always had teacher volunteers to come and help lead those circles. And so I would provide those teachers with prompts or questions. And so they would lead the circle. And then we would talk about it in smaller circles to have more meaningful, deeper conversations about whether it was the new math curriculum, whether it was how our teachers supporting one another in their PLCs or in their writing and teaching. And so that happened once a month. I also provided optional circles every week for staff to come together, and we would talk about things that were happening in the world that weren't even work related, but really just about human beings and how to connect with each other, about things that are happening and how it impacts us as human beings. And sometimes it would be fun. We would play games. We would be joyful, laughing, having a good time. And sometimes it would be really deep, meaningful conversations around the death and the family of one of our teachers, and surrounding her with support and love during that time. And so there are many opportunities to be able to have deeper circles and conversations with such a large staff. And sometimes those circles would shift. Sometimes we would be in grade leveled circles. Sometimes we would mix grade levels up to get to know one another. And this was a really great way to build connections and relationships amongst the staff.
If there are other questions, you can write them into chat, and we will collect those at the end. But I think we'll go on with another couple of stories to share quickly.
Yes. And so as a restorative practices coordinator at the elementary school, I also have an opportunity to hold circle with families. And this was a time during the COVID pandemic when we were learning all virtually. And this was such an important time for families to be able to connect with schools. And so I offered circles. This was bi-weekly with families. And so it was an opportunity for families to join. And we talked about things that were happening at home. And parents expressed frustrations with virtual learning and how they had to balance being a parent, being a teacher, having to work. And this way, one particular parent who was also a principal at another school, she was a parent to her son at our school. And then she was also a teacher to her children during this time, virtual learning. And she had 4 children at home with her. And when it came to her turn to share what it was like to be a parent at home, juggling all of these responsibilities, she had expressed that she was just kind of at the end of her, kind of at her wit's end. She's had enough. And she was looking to the school for support. What can I do? What can the school do to help me and my children at home as we are learning virtually? Because I noticed that my son has been escalating and his emotions have been high, and he's been really not having a lot of patience with me at home. And so after listening to her story and listening to other families who are feeling frustrations, I brought this information to our principal and to our school leaders and to our coaches. And together we were able to come up with, we called it a green room package, because we had a green room at our school where students come to de-escalate themselves. And so we put together these packages with like a jump rope, a book, we call it fidgets, so sensory items for students to have at home. We also included a little graph that showed like different breathing styles. So follow the figure 8 while you breathe. And so together, our leadership team was able to put together these packets that families were able to come to the school to pick up and bring back home, and to support their students at home when they were feeling kind of escalated with all these different emotions that students and families are feeling at home. And so it was a guide for parents to use to support their students at home. And there were tools for students to use as well. And so through these circles and these conversations that we had with families, we were then able to better support them at home during this time. And those circles continued to happen even after the pandemic, because families felt like their voices were heard in this way, and they were a part of the community because they were given an opportunity to share their experiences as parents and their partnership with our school. And so with that, I will pass it to Nancy.
Thanks, Grace. So Grace gave an example of having a circle with adults after the events on January 6th, so that people could process that. I can tell you also of a story of working with a staff when a student died in the school. It was a very tragic incident where he died in a motorcycle accident, and the staff needed to talk about how they felt, and they also needed to talk about how they could help support their young people going forward with this tragedy that everyone had to process. This works best, as Grace said, because everybody knows that Circle is a safe place where people can come together and talk, and they know that because they do it on a regular basis, apropos of no enormous difficulty. In this particular instance, the staff did a go-around where they talked about how they were feeling and what was coming up for them as a result of the tragedy. And then it moved into how they could help their students, and it became a conversation about tears. People needed to think about whether or not it was okay to cry in front of students. And so people talked about everything having to do with tears, that I cry at, anything that happens. Somebody tells me something sad that happened 5 years ago and I might cry. One man said that he felt that it was very important that he cry in front of his son, that it was important for boys to see that men cry. And other people shared that they don't cry. It wasn't something that was part of their growing up, that it was difficult for them. And what that might possibly mean. It was a very profound circle. And going forward, it really helped the adults to be able to understand each other and their process of dealing with this death, and also to know that they had permission to be who they were, whether they were someone who cried or someone who didn't, in front of their students. But again, this happened because the staff was used to being in circle. They had circle muscle, if you will. I'll pass to Grace for our final story.
Thank you, Nancy. The last story comes about, and here I'll share about circle in the home. And so not only did I use circles at work, at school, I also use circles with my own family. And I come from a large family, so I have 6 other siblings with my parents. And my parents were retiring, and they were dealing with some health issues living in Wisconsin. And that is it's about 4 hours away from me. And my siblings and I were talking about, what does mom and dad need in order for them to heal, to feel better? And we kept going back and forth about, oh no, I think this is what's best for mom and dad. This is what we should do. This is what we should do. And then finally I said, well, how about we just have a circle with mom and dad, and we include them in the conversation, and we talk about what they need, and they get to share what they need and how we can support them. And so together, I had my 6 siblings, plus they're all married, so plus their spouse. So there was probably, I want to say, 16 of us in this large circle. And together we came with my parents, and my parents were able to share with us some of the difficulties that they were experiencing living in with the cold weather and the snow, and how my dad had a frozen shoulder. And so he was unable to shovel all the snow. And so my mom's family actually lives in North Carolina, which is south in the United States. And it's a lot warmer down there, where there is no snow at all. And so we had pitched the idea to my parents that they could move down south and live with and near my mom's family. That way there is a community there to support them if they ever need any help. But that us children would be able to support them financially as well as they move down there. And so during this circle, each one of my siblings were able to express the grief, the sadness that they felt with my parents moving down south. And then after we were all done talking about how sad we felt, then we talked about, well, what are we going to do? Well, my brother then set up a U-Haul truck to help them move. My sister set up trying to figure out where they would stay. My other sister set up, well, what are we going to do to support them with health insurance? And then I helped connect with the family down there. And so each sibling had a responsibility to support my parents moving down to North Carolina. And after that, we were able all to come together after my parents moved down south successfully, and they love it there now because it's no snow and they can live in this warmer weather. It brought our family closer together as well, because there was this moment of us being able to talk about just some of the feelings that we experienced, growing closer to one another and supporting our parents in this way where we could all agree and come to a consensus about how we were going to support our parents who were elderly and moving forward in life. And so that also happens and could happen in a home too. And so with that, I am going to go over our circle guidelines as we break off into smaller groups. And so similar to this morning, when you are in circle, we honor the talking piece, the order of speaking. So maybe in the chat, we'll put in an order of names. When it is your turn, you may speak. And when it is not your turn, you are invited to listen. We also invite you to speak and listen from the heart, which doesn't mean you share your deepest, darkest secrets. It just means what is on your heart right now. What would you like to share with the group? Third, what is personal stays and what is learned leaves. So any story that any person shares, that stays within the circle. But what is learned leaves with you. And if there is a story that is so profound that you feel that has impacted you and you would like to share, it's always best to ask permission. Your story was so profound. Is it okay if I take your story and share it with others? So always ask permission to share another person's story. Fourth, remain in the circle. This is especially true when there is a circle to repair harm, that you sit in the circle and you really talk about what happened and how you can work together. We also understand that when we go into small groups, it is not going to be a circle of repairing harm. So if you do need to step away for whatever reason, we understand. Fifth, expect non-closure. That circle may not always solve all the issues or problems or plans. And that circle can be a continuation. And that the time we have may not be enough. And so we have to be able to expect that we may not be able to close with everyone sharing their final thought. And lastly, you may always pass. So if the talking piece comes to you, you can also pass, which means you don't have to share and you can pass it to the next person who is speaking. And so,
thank you, Grace, and Nancy for sharing a lot of insightful story. And for me personal, some is connected to my personal story, and we also received a few more questions in the chat box, and we will come back to the questions after our breakout room if we still have enough time to do it. So now it's 9:10. We will have, I think we'll have a breakout room for 15 minutes, and for more room for everyone to have a chance to share, I think we can put three people in one breakout room, and we will paste the guideline and the prompts to the chat box so everyone can also see. Okay. Okay, so now I think because some of our participants have a challenge with the language, so I think we'll put a group of people speak the same language in the same room. If anyone want to switch room for more diverse conversations and with a friends from another country, please let us know. Let me know. You can chat in the chat box for me so I can switch people. Okay, so So we will have 5 rooms, and I will put people in the room. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to our main room. I think everyone is already here. So before we continue, I believe we all have the valuable and meaningful story in the breakout room, and I would like to invite everyone, if you have time, I think we can stay here for 10 more minutes for more sharing, and or if anyone have to leave on time, please feel free, and I hope to see you again. And I think we'll pass the talking piece back to Grace to continue our sharing session.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for spending your time in your circles. I know sometimes time is not enough, but it's so great to connect, even if it's really quickly. I guess with the few minutes, I know some of you may have to go. Nancy and I wanted to be sure that we shared quickly just a little bit of just how we built this restorative community. And so we look at this triangle, and at the very bottom of the triangle is where I started with our school. I started with practices that build a restorative mindset in adults. And so what I did was I taught adults all the things about restorative practices, where it comes from, why it's important. And I talked about the circle process and all the other elements and principles of restorative practices. Just for the very first year, there was no expectation for adults to do anything but to just learn and to experience for themselves. And the following year, which is the green part of the triangle, was then that we were able to implement practices that build relationships and community. And so this was the year that teachers then, after a year of sitting in circle and learning about circle, then they were able to finally hold circles in their classrooms because they attended trainings, they experienced it, they understood what it meant. And so then they brought it to their classrooms and held circles in their classrooms. And then with that, the culture and the community of the school, you could tell that it shifted, that it was very positive, that students felt like they came to school and there was a sense of belonging, that adults felt like they belong at that school. And then the third year, and moving up to on the triangle to the yellow part, were practices that restore community. Well, because of our adults and our students all had the positive experience with circle and knew that their voices were heard, they knew the process, that's when we were able to hold these repair of harm circles, smaller with incidents that happened within classrooms and students. And so that third year is when I introduced the restorative chat questions, the what happened, how did it make you feel, who was impacted, what do you feel like you need in order to move forward? Those questions didn't come until the very third year of our implementation. And then the very fourth year of our implementation, the very tip of this triangle, is practices that rebuild community. So what circles happened when a student does have to leave the community for whatever reason? How do you welcome them back to your community? And so we held these circles to welcome the student back into our community. And we talked about ways in which we can support this student when they returned. And we would check back with the student a couple weeks later to see, well, how is it going when you have come back to our community? Are the supports we put in place working for you? And if they're not, how can we change it to better support you in our community? And so all these things that happened in the yellow and red of the triangle would not have happened well if we didn't spend time in the blue and the green and building community. And so with that, I'll pass it to Nancy if we wanted to go over these or not. It's up to you. Oh, Nancy, your mic is still muted.
I just want to say one thing about the restorative mindset, and then we'll end. A big thing that I saw in Minnesota that was a real challenge for people implementing restorative practices was their personal experience and beliefs around the usefulness of punishment, sending kids away, and that is not what restorative practices is about. That in the ancient times, people could not afford to send anybody away from the community because you needed everyone to be able to work and gather the food and take care of the family. And so that question about punishment is part of what people need to grapple with, and whether or not they can give it up, and can they replace it with making relationships primary, more important than rules, that you lead with relationships over rules, and that do you see kids' behavior not as a means of making your life miserable as an adult, but that this is a way in which the child is trying to communicate. So those are some really critical components for people to think about, because we have seen people take circle and send around a talking piece and then consequence kids because they didn't talk. Well, you don't have to talk in circle. That's not the point. If you're sitting in circle, that's the point. And listening is an action. And so thinking about those things and doing and undoing them, figuring them out, takes a lot of time for some people. There are lots of ways of exploring that, but I just wanted to share that. And so maybe we could go to the last slide. The very last slide. Well, the one before that. No, back. More back. There we go. Just wanted to share this, which came from the work of Lynn and her colleagues. Classroom Circle 2022 Performance Report. This is from a principal at a high school. The circle gives me a chance to express my heartfelt thanks to my colleagues who have been with me all year long. Whether it's in regular classes or extracurricular activities, teachers always pour their time and dedication into our students. And as the principal, I truly appreciate that, or I am truly appreciated. Yeah, it's nice to feel appreciated and to be able to express that with one another. And so I appreciate you and all of your time. And if anybody wants to stay and throw in more questions into chat, feel free.
Thank you so much, Grace and Nancy, for sharing the last word. And it's really a nice reminder that it's take a long time for us all to make this work, and even to every change needed time, and to be here, to be present is the first and I think the most important step. We take all the courage to be present, to be here, and to be listening, and to listen to others is important. So thank you for being here. And before we closing our workshop today, we will after this workshop, we will send everyone a letter via email. And one of the important things that why we are doing this, organize a workshop, is about connections. And I believe in the strength of our community. When we connections, when we can share, we can listen, we can feel safe, in our community, there's a lot of idea and collaborations will be coming up. And that's why I want to share my last slide about this like connection platform, an online platform that we will share with everyone after this session close. So everyone can feel free to put your information, your LinkedIn, your email, and what you can offer for community or what you need to support right now. And any questions that you still have, you can still put it in here and connect with each others and also with Nancy and Grace. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for staying, spending your time in a workshop and show your dedication, share your value and your insight in our workshop. And this is our workshop is will be organized monthly. So we hope that to see you next time, next month with our next workshop, and hope everyone can connect and share with each other after this. Thank you, Nancy and Grace and everyone for waking really early in the morning, and for everyone to stay up really late now. We'll
Lynn,
see
did
you.
you take a picture?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for notice me about this, and for also notice me about this one. I would like to invite everyone to take a photo if convenient for you. And chị Hải Vân, nếu mà thoải mái thì mình có thể mở camera. So if everyone convenient for you, please open the camera and we can take a group photo. So
Okay. Are you guys ready? We can make like a heart as already a lot of you guys are doing it, or just whatever symbol that you guys value or wanted to. So
How do you do
3,
that?
2, 1. Done. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for staying here up until this hour. And hope you guys have the rest of the day a good one.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.